What's happening? What's happening? What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the Moment with Moesghetti podcast. I am your hostess with the most, this your auntie, sister, cousin, best friend, always coming with the realness, Moesghetti herself. And as you see today, I am not alone. I have my good friend, my brother in song, a fantastic educator and a conversationalist, and he kind of funny too sometimes. So hopefully he brings some of that with us today, Mr. Ray Jones.
What's going on, y'all? What's going on?
I feel like that clap track is very long.
Hey, I enjoy it. I enjoy the long clap.
Anywho, so today we will be having a conversation about childhood trauma. And so I'm really interested in us, and I was getting into that and seeing what comes out of it. Because it is a very interesting topic that I think a lot of us know about, but not everybody really has an opportunity to talk about and really like peel apart what it means and how to work through it. And so before we get to that though, you already know what it is. Just because I got a guest don't mean I ain't got no church announcement. So we're gonna get into the church announcement. I still don't have my sound. And you know what, y'all? I started to do my homework on what sound I want for my intro to the church announcements. I just, I've never been a student that was timely with their homework assignments, and so I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna get to it by year 4 of the podcast. I'm gonna get to it. But anywho, the church announcements go as follows. If any of you are familiar with Miss Culture Kinks, she has an event going on this evening called Culture Fest, Crispy versus Drippy tonight. And I didn't write down what the name of the place was, but it is at 823 North 2nd Street. Show starts at 7:30. Doors open at 6 o'clock. She's got some really fantastic artists that are coming through, and they're going to lay it out and have a lot of good times. She's gonna have some vendors. We're gonna be in there, crispy or drippy. I don't know which one I am, but I'm gonna get dressed and go anyways. We're gonna have a good time. The Ignite DJs are gonna be in the house on the 1s and 2s. And y'all know they always show up and show out. So we're gonna have a good time to eat that. Speaking of church announcements, September 29th, next Sunday, is Harvest Sunday at the Central Church of Christ, which is our friends and family guest days. You want to come church with me? I ain't going to put you on the spot, tell no truths or no lie. But so it's Harvest Sunday. So if you're interested, Central Church of Christ, 1830 West Monroe is Harvest Sunday. If you want to participate, come through, and our color scheme for the day is khaki and white. So if you got the drip, then come on through, and if not, just come as you are. Khaki and white is just the harvest colors and something that a lot of people got in their closet. So if you got it and you want to come through. If you ain't got it but you still want to come through, have a good old time with us. And October 8th at Food for Thought at Mikasa Su Cafe, the feature for the week will be yours truly. What? Yes, it's gonna be me. I'm really excited about this. I don't think I've ever planned any of my features so thoroughly so far out. But I pretty much have my whole set ready to go, and I'm really excited about delivering it to y'all. So it's gonna be one of them emotional ones. I already know because I've been I've done writ some new stuff. See, look. I'm already starting to sound like Alabama for no good reason. I wrote some new stuff, and I'm really excited. And I have some really old stuff that I done pulled out the vault for this one, so I'm really excited about this poetry feature. So October 8th, Food for Thought at Mikasa Su Cafe, 1835 North MLK Drive. Doors open 7, showtime's at 8. So come through. We're going to have a good time. And the last church announcement, this one involves you.
Okay.
Well, involves us. Well, it involves something that we a part of.
Okay.
Anthony Moesghetti and Praise Motivated, both of us are singers in the illustrious choir. We got a new single out. Yes. It is called We Believe God. It is on all music platforms. So just type in Anthony Moesghetti and Praise Motivated, We Believe God, and take a listen. That song be making me cry when we sing it. like in real life.
Like you really do.
It touches my heart, and I love the way that it sounds because I feel like that emotion has carried through onto the track. And so we really hope that you guys enjoy it as well. Give it a listen or 12. Yeah,
It'll bless you.
It'll bless you.
It'll bless you.
I'm a fan of AMPM outside of being a member.
Oh yeah.
Because the music just be good and it's touching. It's touching.
Very much so.
So that's that. All right. I drink my water. Say hi to the people while I drink my water real quick.
What's going on, y'all? Again, I'm Ray Jones from Alabama. I'm sure you can hear it. She's picking on me already, saying that she already picking up on her accent, saying like she sounds like Alabama. Don't listen to her.
I'm gonna sound like Alabama before this conversation is over. I ain't gonna be able to help it. Don't judge me, y'all. As you hear it evolve, don't judge me.
Hey, it's catching. You too might pick up on it.
You too.
You too.
Might sound like you're from Alabama by the end of this podcast. So, Ray, okay, so today we decided that we were going to talk about childhood trauma. So, I'm a person that likes definitions, so I pulled out a couple of definitions for us today.
Okay.
And the definition first I pulled up was trauma. Trauma being a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. So, and I like to do definitions when we're doing the show because I want to make sure that everybody is speaking the same language, especially when it comes to something like trauma, because everybody has a different idea of what trauma even is. And some people don't consider the different things that they've been through to be traumatic or don't consider it to be traumatic enough, which is another reason why I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because I think a lot of people have gone through things in their childhood that was traumatic, but they don't necessarily consider it a trauma because they got older and they still live in life. And so when it comes to trauma, there's different scales of the trauma. Acute traumas are, let me stop spinning and knocking stuff over. Acute traumas are traumas that have happened in like a single episode or one time. Chronic trauma is trauma that has happened repeatedly over time. And then complex trauma is trauma that has come from different directions multiple times over. It becomes complex because it's compounded and you may have experienced different types over an extended period of time. So I guess my first question to you is, what is your understanding of trauma and what that even means?
The definition pretty much spoke for itself, but as to me, trauma is something that it is very something that shifted, how we live from our childhood into adulthood. Something that happened within our childhood that we may not have ever grasped as to why it happened. Sometimes, especially in the African American community, certain traumas that happen we're taught to, sweep it under a rug. Or if, whatever goes in this house stays in this house. So it's almost like we've been going through trauma. A lot of our parents of before, they'll tell us, even with, mental illness, ain't nothing wrong with you. I'll give you something to cry about or stuff like that. So we learn to internalize trauma and we give it room in different avenues in our lives, and we grow up and it shapes us. And sometimes it shapes us, majority of the time, it shapes us into negative avenues that we try to mask because, one, we're either embarrassed about the trauma, whatever that trauma may be, or we don't want to defy our parents for, airing out dirty laundry, whatever that case may be. So that's what trauma is.
I find it really interesting, like what you had to say about what happens in this house stays in this house, or we don't want to air our parents out. Because one of the things that I've noticed that I have to work with people on in my job, for those who don't know, I'm a therapist, mental health therapist, sit people on my couch, ask them how things make them feel. And many times when we're working through childhood trauma or even active trauma, people have a hard time talking about what their parents have done to them.
Oh yeah.
And like, I have to remind them that it is a safe space. I have to remind them that, whatever goes on in their room, whatever we talk about in their room is between us,
Yeah.
especially if it happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can really even do about that.
Yeah.
And to let them know on top of that, that I'm not judging or demonizing their parents. And because there's so much weight that carries when you feel like somebody's going to judge your parents for what happened in your childhood.
Yeah.
So I find it very interesting that you bring up that, what happens in this house stays in this house, because that gets so embedded in us that you could be 20 years later not want to talk to your therapist because that's the story.
That's the story we've been told. Yeah.
So is that a mantra that you've heard coming up?
Yes. And not just in my family, just in different families. And a lot of times in our community, African American community, it's almost like a common language. And a lot of that stuff kind of stems from slavery, and it's generational traumas. Like, okay, Big Mama dealt with this, Mama dealt with this, my daddy dealt with that. But because I hold this prestige place in the community, we can't let everybody know what we're dealing with in our internal family. So yes, I'm going to tell you, if we're dealing with some stuff at home, if mom's an alcoholic, if she's a functioning alcoholic, we're going. This house stays in this house. Nobody needs to know what's going on. This is not everybody's business. Guess what it'll do to the family? It's going to give us a negative name, so we hide it. We hide it.
What do you think are the because I don't want to say just bad sides, but what are the consequences, or what is the result? That's what I'm looking for. What is the result of keeping all of that in the house?
The result, and I can't speak for everybody, but for myself and for others that have learned how to channel their traumas into more of a positive avenue, it pushed me to become an educator, because I want to give out what I wish I had more of growing up to students who, and I can usually pick out what student is going through A, B, C, or D. And not just with school, anything with children, because again, I pick out children because we're talking about childhood trauma. So I know the voice, I know the cry. I can look at your face and I can say, oh, okay. Oh, you're going through a lot of verbal abuse, or somebody may be touching you, or you're going through a lot of rejection. You're not welcome. It's a lot that you can really face. So if you do not channel that in a positive way, it can come off to you being a loner. It can come off as you fighting depression. You can become a functioning depressant, or just a depressed person. It could lead to drug, alcohol. I mean, we all know what it can lead to. Some people are very promiscuous depending on the type of trauma that they went through. So if you don't get the help, or if you don't feel or find your person, because I had to find a person. I had to find a person to really just like talk that to. And it's okay if the person who caused you the trauma never apologizes, because sometimes you will never get the I'm sorry that you feel like you deserve, and that will keep you in bondage, looking for an apology that you may never get. So you have to forgive yourself, because hey, that's a guilt that will attach itself to you, and you will live with it for the rest of your life, thinking that it's your fault that you caused childhood trauma, whatever that trauma may be. And then two, just having your heart open, ready to receive an apology that you never forget. It will turn your heart into stone. You will be very angry. You'll be not so trusting to people because you don't know who's going to hurt you even more. So it's almost like adding hurt on top of hurt.
And you know what? And when people take on that type of stuff due to childhood trauma, there's a lot of people who are walking around who think that their standoffish nature or their loner status is really their true personality. Like we can take that on as a whole identity.
Yes.
And the reason why we do is because throughout the time periods in which we were supposed to be developing the markers of our personality, we were being traumatized, and we learned that it is safer not to deal with people. So instead of being more engaging, now genuinely some people are introverted, like just don't really get overstimulated or don't really like to be around a lot of people.
Right.
Or enjoy their own company. But there are many people who would love to be in the company of a lot of folk. But because of their trauma, they've learned that it is safer as they were developing their personality to stay to themselves. And so they don't even risk developing relationships with other people. And then it just becomes a way of living miserably because that's not what you truly want.
No.
But we take on stuff like, I got an attitude problem. That's just how I am. I'm a loner. That's just how I am. We take on a lot of stuff and then just call it our personality, not knowing that it's rooted in the fact that you couldn't trust anybody when they were coming up. It was rooted in the fact that you got cussed out a lot coming up. It was rooted in the fact that you, and it's not even, because childhood trauma is not just what happened in your house. It's what happened at school. It's what happened in your neighborhood. Like I said, trauma is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience.
Yes.
So it's about your experiences. It could be your experiences at church. It could be your experiences.
Took it right out my mouth.
Right. It could be your experiences. If you lived in the South during Katrina or any of the other storms, it could be nature-based where you experienced the trauma. It doesn't even have to be stuff that happened to you in your home. I think that too, when we talk about childhood trauma, we narrow it down a little bit to you got touched.
Yeah. I mean, that is common, but it is, and I want to go back and kind of reshape that. Childhood trauma can happen anywhere at any time with anyone. With anyone. Not necessarily with family. It could be with friends. It could be with total strangers. It could be with your teacher. It could be with your daycare workers. It would be with your youth leaders at church. Just like you said, like it doesn't have a building, but it does have a look. It has a look.
Childhood trauma doesn't have a building, but it has
a look.
What does it look like?
Many looks. It has many looks. Just like attitudes. With attitudes, you can when a person has a negative attitude, it's not so much of them wanting to have the attitude, that's their defense mechanism. So it's like, okay, I'm guarded up. You ain't finna say anything to hurt me more so than I've been damaged. If a person like to fight, they're angry. They're real angry. Who wakes up and just want to knock people out?
Gang banging on bacon?
You just want to fight?
Every
day. That's painful. But if I want to inflict pain on you, it's because I don't know how to internally deal with the pain that I'm feeling within myself. So I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna pick a fight because I'm getting it out. I can't express it vocally, so I'm gonna do it. People who are promiscuous. I'm just going there. I don't know how to vocally tell you how I feel because I had a seed planted in me 4, 5, 6 years old, generally speaking, and I don't know how to tell you about that. I don't know how to tell you, hey, for instance, mama, Uncle so-and-so did this. First of all, are you gonna believe me? Are you gonna believe that Uncle so-and-so did it? This your brother or this your uncle?
Are you gonna do something?
Are you gonna do something about it? You're right. And so it just breeds a different look. How do we look at things? So, okay, well, hey, obviously it nobody did anything about this. So obviously it's not a bad thing. So when I get older and I really walk into uh, how I'm feeling, and I like it, and I get to do more of it, and nobody telling me that is wrong. That's another avenue. That's how it looks like promiscuity. I can't even say the word.
Promiscuity.
Yeah, promiscuity. Thank you. That
Use my northern accent.
yes, promiscuity. Yes. People who are always isolated to themselves, and yes, like you said earlier, you have people who are naturally loners.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, but usually you will see that when they are a child. That's just not something that I just developed.
You'll see them what they like to do.
Yeah. You can always kind of see what a child's going to do by the things that they gravitate to or like in their happiness as a child.
Yes.
In their happiness. But in sadness, we hide. So we really don't know what we want to do, or we do know what we want to do. We're afraid to do it because we don't know. We're afraid to speak. Mm-hmm. We're afraid to tell. Mm-hmm. Because we don't know what are we going to get in return. Are we going to get punished for telling? Are we going to get made fun of? Are we going to get laughed at? Are we going to get told that we're lying? Like, are we even going to be, believable to what should be our support system, what should be our place of refuge, what should be our help? We don't find that.
Oh, and I just had a thought, and I didn't want to cut you off.
No,
I don't want to lose it. There are some times when people speak up and something is done, but what's done leads to a whole nother avenue of traumatic experiences. So I've had experience working in the foster care system, and people speak up, and next thing you know, you're taken out of your home. So even though your parents are abusing you, now you don't get to live at home no more. Which, even if you do get placed with somebody who is with a safe home, these are strangers I got to sleep with now.
And you don't even know what they're going to do.
You don't know what they're going to do, even if they are safe, even if they prove themselves to be safe. Like anytime a child is removed from a home, it's a traumatic experience, even if it is an unsafe home that they're removed from. You take me from my mom and dad; these are the only people I know.
Yes,
that's traumatic all on their own. Other times, even if they stay in the home or they don't stay in the home, you find out that Uncle so-and-so, touched you, or Auntie so-and-so, because that happens too.
Yeah.
Let's say that everybody does believe you, and that person is like reprimanded and not allowed to come around you or come around no more. Some kids sit with the guilt that they broke up the family.
Come on.
Even if the family was okay with exiling that person, 9 times out of 10, it's gonna be something with somebody with something negative to say about it. That's my brother. We don't treat family like that, or whatever. But even if people are on board, having the ripple effect of those experiences means I told and something happened, and the something that happened is our family is no longer what it used to be, and it's my fault. So even having the quote unquote favorable outcome of people believing you and doing something still can leave like traces of other types of trauma that make you question whether or not it's worth it to have the aftershocks of shaking the table when it comes to other experiences you have in your life. It can get complex.
Very much so. Very much so. I want to pose a question to you. Okay, so like I said, childhood traumas have many looks. So of course you have your common one, molestation, verbal abuse, physical abuse. But we never talk about the trauma we have with our skin tone. I had this conversation, even with me. I'm gonna use me for an example, and this may be not just a down south thing, but even within our community, even within our families, uh, skin tone, you can have trauma with by how your family treats you based on your skin tone. People used to uh, say to me, "Well, you light skinned, you got this, you got that." I'm gonna tell you the truth. I didn't even know I was light skinned until I got older. Because my mother's side of the family, they some dark chocolate people, and I love it. I used to have sandy brown hair. Uh, and I remember one time just going to the bathroom and getting a Sharpie marker so I can color my hair black like the rest of my cousins because that's what I saw. And you can't do that. They would think that because I was my grandma used to say high yellow boy that I wasn't hard like the rest of my cousins. So I remember just always trying to do stuff that would be so tough. So I wasn't a disrespectful child, but I was always a child just doing something to get like a praise or something for being tough, like falling off my bike, busting my knee or something like that. Something that
being tough.
Yeah, being tough, just something that I would want to cry about. I didn't. And I think that followed me into my adulthood with not so much of the skin problem, but so much of me trying to always be this super tough, super masculine type of person because, hey, I was taught or I heard so much coming up. Oh, you soft, you light skinned, you're a pretty boy.
I mean, even in our joking and our lingo that's light skin behavior.
That's light skin behavior,
and it is always something that is soft or romantic or like it's never anything. And if it is tough, it's because them light skins got that rebellious anger.
They got tired of you picked on.
Like Malcolm X, why you guys do them light skins definitely be angry. I mean, and I just got done reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. Some of that was his mom was hardcore because she did not like the fact that she was mixed. She was light skinned because she was mixed. And it came with her doing a lot, finding the blackest man that she could find so her babies wouldn't be so she could wash that out of her system. And so it on the other side, you have the the dark skin I don't know.
The darker, like my cousins, they're very dark skinned. I used to hear them say, "Well, I'm not as pretty as, or my hair is not as long, or you got bad hair." I used to,
and that's that relationship to really white supremacy. That's
slavery.
That's that stuff that has been passed down generationally from slavery that causes us to have a negative self-image. And then the things like what we would see in the media, like. I remember growing up watching Martin, Gina, and Pam. Gina was always
in the forefront,
depicted as the pretty one. Pam was always, her and Martin. It's funny that they go at it. It's not funny that it was always like an attack on her. And I knew it had to do with her being dark skinned. And it wasn't until I grew up that I realized exactly how beautiful, how absolutely gorgeous this woman is. And like Whoopi Goldberg black. Like it took until I grew up to see how absolutely beautiful she is with her full features, like her full African looking features. Like there's so many people who it wasn't until we started saying stuff like Kelly Rowland Fine that we really embraced the beauty in darker skinned people. And when you're growing up with these messages being just thrown at you through the media, I know I don't look like Gina. So what does that mean for my beauty as a young woman coming up, feeling like, and then those who are around, us all eating this up and then having to go out into the world and figure out how what our worth is as a beautiful person, as an attractive person, like yourself. And then that's all being inundated into us as children, just trying to sit down and watch TV.
Right, 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 right.
So yeah, so it's, on both sides of the spectrum, y'all like, I gotta be tough because everybody gonna try me or think I'm weak just because I'm like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I gotta be, I don't know. A part of the reason why we trying you is because the inadequacies that we feel on this side. So in order for me to feel beautiful, I gotta make you feel weak.
And it's so crazy because you can take, and I'm not just talking about African American family, but I kind of am.
Real.
Yeah,
I mean,
I kind of
hey,
am. You can have an African American family and you can have 4 different shades.
Mhm.
And in that cube, that family cube, you can literally make each person in your cube feel less than just by the skin tone.
But you know what? Something, I mean, not to speak for them, but something that I've been coming to see on the white side is that they value that blondness.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, they value that blondness so much to the point where they hold on, like as small children, they're super blonde. They grow out of that. Their hair color changes over life, and they will hold on to that youthful blonde
Yes.
to tooth and nail.
Yeah.
Because that's where that value is. And these young girls, they will be 14 years old feeling like their stock is dropping.
Yeah.
Because their hair is changing.
Oh, yes.
Like that's traumatic when you're just trying to grow into being a person. My value is leaving me because of the way I look is changing.
Wow. 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 And that is so, and then even they do the skin tone within themselves.
Yeah.
But it's more so money about them. Like if you're not prestigious, you got money, they call you trailer trash.
Yeah. Yeah. And growing up as trailer trash will have you out here doing, and growing up as hood and poor, will have you out here. I can't wait till I get old enough to be able to sell some drugs and get out of this situation.
Right. But it's almost like, what do you do? What type of resources do we have? Why I wish that our parents' generation was as open as our generations. Like they call the millennials that break them up because we were the generation that had the values of the old, but we also had the taste of the new.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like we're that mediator. Like, okay, no, I'm not gonna whoop my kids for every little thing. I'm gonna talk to them, but then at the same time, I kind of understand why parents whooped, because it's now they lost respect. We have it, but yet we lose it because it's almost like we're in rebellious. We're kind of mad at them because now, okay, I know I know what you did. I know the people that you had around us and that caused us the trauma. I know that stuff was wrong, but I'm not gonna be quiet no more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna be silent no more. You can't tell me, which is to my next point. You can't tell me that I'm wrong for voicing my opinion.
Right. Right.
You can't do that no more. And so now we're having this mental awareness, and I wish they had childhood trauma awareness, because that really stems into why we deal with so much mental illness.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And let's not even talk about the childhood trauma that we get from church. Oh my word.
There are so many people who completely don't believe in God or don't believe in organized religion because of all the trauma they dealt with in their congregations as a child.
Listen.
From the things that were done to them to the things that they witnessed being done to other adults.
Yeah.
Because witnessing things counts under the umbrella of trauma. It doesn't have to happen to you. But if you witness things that were not okay and it stuck with you in a distressing and disturbing way, it counts.
I know a couple of my friends growing up whose parents were very, very, very much religious. More so they were more on traditional Pentecostal skew. Some were on the traditional Baptist skew.
A lot of long denim skirts.
Yes, a lot of long denim skirts, and you going to hell if you do this and if you get your ears pierced. But the stories that they would tell, how they would see how the pastor would just take advantage of their mom in a sense of, and I just speak on this, most of your church is financially struggling, but you are so financially greedy that you just use God's name as a way to take advantage to get what you want, knowing that your flock is struggling, knowing that you're using the Lord's name in vain to push this single mother with 5 kids, just generally speaking, to give her last $20 that may have went to feed them. And so my friends used to despise their pastor is because they were like, God is not a God that make us suffer. God is not a God that, mama, God's not going to make you go to hell if you don't give this $20. We got to eat, or we got to buy some stuff to wash our clothes. And it used to literally make, because I was fortunate not to have that type of trauma within the church.
Same.
I saw it because I came up in church, but that wasn't my trauma. But I know a lot of my friends who grew up in church that dealt with that childhood trauma are not in church anymore.
Oh, yeah.
They absolutely hate church.
Yeah.
And used to look at me like, and you still doing this because? How do you even help? How do you even overcome that in your adulthood? What can you possibly say to a person that you know that even went through any of the traumas? What can you say?
Honestly, that's a big question, because it really depends. It depends on what area they're trying to heal at the moment. Because when you've gone through childhood trauma, the older you are, the longer you go without healing it, the more deeply embedded it is in your sense of self. And so when you start to go down the avenues, first of all, you have to even acknowledge what got broke.
That part.
Because you may not even know or may not even accept that things are just not right with you. Like, there's so many people, when I've asked them, have you dealt with trauma? They will say no. And then I start talking to them about their life. And I'll be like, that was a traumatic experience. Things like growing up with gunshots in your neighborhood is not normal.
No.
You are not supposed to hear gunshots and be like, oh, dang, they shooting. Like, that is not a normal response.
Not okay.
And so the first thing we had to do is even just unpack and acknowledge, like, our areas in which we've been traumatized and trace them to what behaviors we have going on. Like you said before, forgive ourselves and forgive the other people who were involved in it. Yeah. Sometimes we got to get angry at those people who were involved in it first before we can forgive them, because sometimes we haven't even spent the time to be mad at it because we were so busy ignoring it or suppressing it or being told not to talk about it that we don't even know how to sit with and acknowledge what it means to be mad that somebody did something that was bad to us, or we experienced something that was scary around us. No, like I mentioned before, for those who had to like flee for like war zones or hurricanes or stuff like that, as a child, ain't no time to process
it.
We gotta run. We gotta go. We gotta swim. We gotta jump. We gotta get up out of here. And now we gotta figure out, what do we do next? Where do we live? How do we eat? And now, okay, now that we done figured out where we at now, okay, we're good now. Go to school. What?
You took me.
My entire life has been uprooted, and now I have to just go.
Or once you get to the new place, and the people that you stay with, God forbid, treat you like that. Oh, well, I got to deal with this because we got to show gratitude that they open.
I have to show gratitude.
I have to accept it because we have nowhere else to go.
And I don't have no time to be angry that my whole life has changed.
Because me being angry gets us kicked out.
I can't be sad about it because I look ungrateful. Can't even be picky about it because I look like I'm unappreciative.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, my whole life just changed. And so, sometimes we have to even take the time to have the emotions that we had about it
Yes.
to get to the other side. And people try to try to cut that experience off sometimes a little prematurely because it's uncomfortable to have to go live an experience that you thought that you were over.
You're speaking. You're speaking.
Because when we get older, we think just because time passed that we got over it. And it's not always about getting over it. Sometimes you got to go through it, which means that you got to go through the anger, the sorrow, the grief, the whatever it is that you were supposed to experience when you were actively living that situation. Now you got to go through it. Now you got to cry like a baby. Like you might have to ball up in the fetal position and actually cry like a baby. You might have to go and physically or proverbially cuss somebody out that you weren't able to cuss out
Yes.
when you were a kid. Sometimes you got to go rebuy that toy that somebody threw out the window so you can go play with it, like, and move to the other, so that you can move through it to the other side and experience all the emotions and say all the things that your traumatized inner child didn't get a chance to do. And then on the other side of that, you got to learn how to live the new experience of what life is like without all that baggage. And when I tell you how uncomfortable it is sometimes to live on the other side of that baggage because you don't even know what this is.
Listen, you were talking, and I had got the illustration of, when we fall off a bike and we get this nasty scrape on our knee, we feel the pain.
Mm-hmm.
We feel the pain. And sometimes, whether or not, what type of parents you have, majority of everybody would, dress it up, and the band-aid we'll put on there. Sometimes the band-aid may be small, it may not be the appropriate size band-aid, but we try to cover it up.
Mm-hmm.
Notice we try to cover it up.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we wonder why our knee doesn't heal properly. It's because sometimes we don't want everybody to see the nastiness of our wound.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the best ways to heal a wound is to let it breathe.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're going to have to take that bandage off, and you're going to have to let that wound be exposed. See, that childhood trauma, we've learned to keep putting bandages on top of these wounds, whatever avenue your wound happened in. And as adults, we haven't let our wounds breathe.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about taking the band-aid off,
which hurts,
which hurts. So now you're faced with, okay, so now I have a scar. Who wants scars? Who wants to? Because when you see a scar, the first thing you want to ask is, what happened to you?
Yep.
And then, whether you know it or not, psychologically, your mind is going to go back to that pain. But if you never really just ever told someone what happened, you relive that again.
Mm-hmm.
Or you try to shy away because you don't want to. I don't want to tell nobody what happened to me. And yes, what do we do when we finally let our wounds breathe? But sometimes we have to be careful when we breathe, or let our wounds breathe, that it don't get any more dirt inside of the wound. So you almost have to be in a certain atmosphere to make sure that your wound doesn't get any more infected or infected, because, just like you were saying earlier, certain times we have trust issues about opening up or finally telling, and that I've been a victim of telling somebody about a childhood trauma that I went through. And then necessarily it was in the church. And I told them, and sometimes churches don't know how to deal with trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so they told, and now it happens to where everybody in the church knew what happened. And so what that looked like for me, again, it goes back to childhood trauma time. Look, now I can't trust you.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to be this religious leader. You're supposed to be at least the person who will help me to spiritually
Get through, right?
get through. But now it's like, okay, so you want to look like Superman when you end up being Corella Deville. Because you have a position, but you don't know how to deal with your position.
Mm-hmm.
And you said something else. I don't know if you ever watched the movie Antoine Fisher.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite movies, and one of the poems that I used to say to myself was, and even more recently, within the last 3 years, who will cry for the little boy who lived inside of me? We have not, some of us have not cried. We haven't gave our childhood trauma a sound.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes crying is the first sign of healing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it like you were saying that you got to put that open wound in the right kind of environment. You can't surround yourself with the same type of people, especially the same people, unless they have healed, that traumatize you in the first place, because they are going to re-traumatize you. They are going to if you got pushed down as a little kid and that bothered you, and you surround yourself with people who like to push folk down, being around them is gonna make you feel like that little kid that got pushed down again, and you're gonna get pushed down again.
Yeah.
And so, and that is the one of the things that makes the healing process so difficult, is because when you are traumatized as a child, sometimes all you know is people, places, and things that are going to re-traumatize you. That's what you're drawn to, because that's what you're accustomed to.
Yep.
And sometimes, and part of the healing process is learning how to not engage with them type of people no more, which means finding a whole new system of, I don't know, a whole new system of finding community. And when you don't know how to do that, and all you are attracted to is people who treat you a certain type of way, you got to break out of that and learn how to get yourself in a different environment. Learn how to identify the types of people who you can trust versus just being around the same type of people who you can't trust. And that'll have you in a period of isolation like no other, as you transitioning from one space to another. But, you know, it is a symptom of your healing when you find yourself no longer in environments where you're unloved. Like, people can get accustomed to mistreatment and think that that's normal. And when they find situations in which they're treated well, it becomes so foreign, it becomes uncomfortable until you get comfortable with it. I know too many people who are like, that's just the way the world is. And they think that the world is about, you know, folks scheming and lying and, you know, always there being an angle. I'm like, that's not the way the world is. Like, I've had many conversations with folk, and they are so shocked and surprised that I pretty much tell the truth all the time. I don't have a reason to lie.
Right.
And for the most part, I operate as if everyone is telling me the truth. I know they're not. I know they're not.
And you can tell.
I can tell.
You can tell.
But I prefer to see the world in a way in which people are telling me the truth until you prove to me that you're a liar. Because it makes me less jaded. And when I find out that you're not a truth teller, it's okay. Because that's just you instead of that's how people are.
Yeah.
And it is a much more pleasant way. And then I know not to trust you and not to listen to nothing you have to say.
Nothing.
I might sit there for 45 minutes listening to this whole tall tale that you're telling me. It might be a riveting story, but I ain't believe. What happened next?
Gripping testimonials.
Oh, my word. But you know, you learn to differentiate the two so that you can't be harmed, but you learn to look at the world in a way that is not so dark to where that's just how people are. Now, that's how broken people are, but that's not how all people are. There are many trustworthy people. There are people who will not harm you, not intentionally. You know, everybody flawed, but there exist things outside of what you may have experienced. But when you're super traumatized and when you're constantly dipped in it, you sometimes don't even know that those environments in which it is safe to take off the band-aid, which it is safe to be vulnerable, which it is safe to speak up, you don't know that those spaces exist until you break out of those old paradigms and move into the new one. And until you move into the new environments, though, you might not even feel safe being that type of person that tells the truth, that is honest, that is open, that is vulnerable. Because it don't grow where you at. But you got to go where that can grow, and you got to grow in that area first before you can move, and it can be tough.
That really can. And another thing with social media,
sheesh, your algorithm can give you a skewed view to what the world is.
Listen, social media will have you believing that you're okay. Woo. And it's not. It will continue to have you putting on different masks to already mask up that you are not okay. You're not okay. And that we look for help me out.
I don't know what you're looking for.
We look for assurance, for validation. We look for validation from people that we don't even know.
But that's a byproduct of not being loved.
Yes. But then that pushes us to a avenue of never being totally healed. Now I'm talking about, okay, we already talked about childhood trauma as, kids. Now we're talking about living with that childhood trauma as an adult. And we find ourselves literally looking for validation as a place of healing. Oh, your picture got I want to go viral.
And I'll do anything to do.
And don't right. And you find yourself connecting with people who have that same connection to what caused you to have that trauma as a child, but because it gives you a attention that you wish you had in overcoming your trauma as a child, you are literally reliving your trauma, and the cycle goes on and it goes on and it goes on. And because it's almost like, okay, well, hey, you're being recognized for doing this, or you're being recognized, you're viral, now we're going to shoot you some money. And we wonder why we are losing a generation behind us, and we want to blame them for acting a fool. And now social media has become a trauma, not for just us as adults who haven't healed from our trauma as a child, but you have kids now that are being cyberbullied. You have kids now that are being lured through sexual predators. You have kids now who are committing suicide because they feel like they're not valid enough, or they're not enough because my picture isn't pretty, or nobody tells me I'm pretty at home, or nobody tells me they love me at home. Nobody wants to be my friend when I'm at school. Nobody wants to sit with me at the lunch table at school. Nobody ever tells me that my clothes are nice. So guess what? I'm going to post this on social media, or whatever social media platform they want to use. Fighting to be seen. And then I'm going to entertain whatever person that's trying to entertain me. And then, God forbid, they meet up with this person, and then boom, what could be a potential childhood trauma has become their reality. And childhood trauma is more of an epidemic now than it should be. It's happening way more often. It's occurring too fast, and we aren't helping. We're not shielding. We're not protecting them, because yet we have not overcome the childhood traumas ourselves, because we were told, don't say anything. Stay in your lane. Mind your business. Those aren't your kids.
Stay in a child's place.
Stay in a child's place. You don't want those problems. You don't know what type of family they came from, but you see it. You see it going on. As an educator, I see a lot of stuff. As an educator, you can't do this, you can't do that. But we're talking about kids here. We're talking about saving them. We're talking about a generation that doesn't have to be as faulty as they are, but they can actually be a whole. They can enjoy being a child again. If we can stop, we can't help every child, but if we can help one child, that's enough.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing about social media is that there's so many people who don't understand what a child's experience is on social media. We're dealing with the first generation of adults whose entire lives has existed on the internet. There are young adults now. They're moving into young adult age where if you go back far enough, you could find a picture of the party that their parents met at.
You're not lying.
You might be able to find a photo of the night that they was conceived.
See, come on.
On the internet, you could find the announcement that they made when they found out that they was pregnant. Pregnancy photos, baby pictures,
baby showers,
baby showers, kindergarten, all the way through high school graduation. You can find we have a generation of young adults that are coming up now whose entirety of their lives may exist right there on the internet. And we don't know we don't know what that is.
Right.
There was no the internet wasn't what it is now when we was coming up.
No.
Social media. When I first got onto the earlier iterations of social media, you had to have a scanner at home.
You sure did. You sure. Internet wasn't even as fast. It was dial-up.
Oh my gosh, it took all day to download it.
And you better not try to get on the internet when your parents was on the phone.
Like, no. And so we don't even know what that experience is quite like. And so the validation of not just the people around you, but the entire world around you, it opens them up to a greater sense of knowledge and connection that we've never seen before. I can get on the internet right now, talk face to face, talk to somebody from across the world. True. Like for real.
We had pen pals.
Right, we had pen pals. But also that means that I can hand you my child this tablet just to keep them entertained for a little while, and next thing you know, they done seen way more than I would have ever wanted them to see.
Trauma.
And they ain't gotta go up underneath the parents' mattress when they leave the
Right.
house to see it.
Right. And we give them phones at 6 years old.
And so we're dealing with, the connectivity and the access. One of the beautiful parts of it is that some of the trauma is being reduced because everybody is talking about things. You can't hide stuff. Some of these kids they'll flip the phone open, boom, look what's happened to me at my house right now. Somebody stop this lady, somebody come get me, somebody, and they can get out of these situations.
True.
They even have the language for what we're talking about. These kids know what mental health is. They have the language. They know what trauma is. They know what vulnerability is. They know what depression is. They know what anxiety is. They know
and will tell you
what these things are, and they can tell you. And we wouldn't have even had the language for this stuff to know that there's something wrong with us. Yeah. Now they use it as a crutch. but they have the language for it, and we want to call these kids sensitive because they're always like, I'm triggered. They triggered for real, but they know they know to say that they're triggered. They know to say that they need a safe space. They know to say different things. They know how to advocate for themselves. They might not be able to order food on the phone, but they know how to advocate for themselves.
And I rather learn how to advocate for myself than to know how to order food or anything else, because
I'd rather they be more sensitive and know what all of this stuff is,
Yes.
than be just as sensitive but covering it up
And
under
covering it
layers
up.
and layers of dirt.
Yes, I hear so many, and just being in education, I hear so many grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, grandparents even change. Grandparents, the looks of grandparents. My grandparents, my grandma, this is the last living grandparent I have. She's 91. So when I was a child, she was in her 60s. 60s back then looked like you was 60. Now
42.
42. They call it GG. They call it everything, and nothing is wrong with that. But we are talking about three different childhood. My grandma was born in 33. It was do as I say and not as I do.
And that was the safest thing for us to do at that time.
Yeah, to stay safe, because one, you know, whoopings for them, that was just they didn't talk.
Mm-mm.
When they whooped us, they whooped and then ask questions later.
If they ask questions.
If they ask questions. So it was like, okay, so I'm growing up afraid of you.
Uh-huh.
Instead of me being afraid of you in the right way, like me honoring you because I know
that you're a person
that you're a person you respect, not because okay, I just don't want to get the switch, I don't want to get the belt or whatever you put your hand on. It's like that. But I said all that to say these kids now are dealing with parents, and this can be the flip side of it, that wants to be friends with their child instead of parenting their child.
Mm-hmm.
But how can you parent your child if you have not dealt with that childhood trauma that you're recovering? So now you're wondering about your child is cussing at you, but because you had a childhood trauma of getting whooped just for spilling a cup of apple juice,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to whoop them. But you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, because now your child is cussing at you and probably raising his fist up at you, or she raising her fist up at you, and you're like, well, I don't want to lose a friend. That's your child.
It's your child. You're responsible for them being a
Right.
person. Well, because sometimes some people have swung the pendulum too far. A lot of people have a misunderstanding of what gentle parenting is, because
Yeah.
that is a term that is out there, and I wish there was, I don't know, something else that it was called,
Yeah.
because some people think that gentle parenting is just permissive parenting, when you just allow your children to do whatever. Some people rebel so hard against anything called gentle parenting. Well, I ain't got no gentle kids. Well, your kids are not gentle because you're
not gentle. Yeah.
But you know, it is really not about being soft on your kids. It's about not knocking them against the wall just because they made a mistake. It is about actually figuring out what is the root of this behavior, because sometimes you just need to talk to your child. Like my son, when he was young and he'd get in trouble at school, they had their little color chart at school. I had my complimentary color chart at home to see what your evening was gonna be like. You know, you get on red, you might get a whooping, but we're gonna talk about what happened, because he got on red before, and it was like it wasn't worth it. It wasn't a good day. But it was another day where he got on red, and I was like, "Oh no, you done earned that one. Come on, come here." But you know, and sometimes it would just be it would be like you had an exceptional day after all of your stuff was done. You watch TV, play video games. If it wasn't exceptional, okay, maybe you watch TV, no video games. You know, other days, no TV. Like it was tiered to how your day was at school. But certain things in my parenting, I never took away. I never took away books, and I never took away art. My son is a fantastic artist now. And so he was an artist back then. I saw it in him then. And so I would never take away a book, because you could read GBI. And I'd never take away his art, because I knew that was an area of self-expression. And I felt like that was cool to take away, you know, your notebook and your pencils just because you had a bad day at school. Like, I thought that was just like, that would be doing too much. Now I took his TV. It was in my room for like, I don't know, I forgot. But none of that required me to put my hands on my child. Now, I'm not saying I never whooped him because he got some. But, and then a lot of that it was about connecting. It was about actual discipline. We don't know what discipline is. We just know what trauma is because of how we were hit on, how we were beat on, how we were yelled at. We think cuss that, I had this thrown at me and that.
And we brag on it sometimes.
Brag on it.
That's like a level of, oh, y'all didn't go through that? Y'all didn't have no childhood. What?
I turned out okay. You had depression and anxiety. Are you sure you turned out okay? Right. You don't know how to handle when somebody talks to you hard. Are you sure you turned out okay?
Right.
You handled it too well when somebody talked to you hard. You sure you turned out okay? Yes. We don't know what discipline is without coming down and beating somebody and sparing the rod. The rod ain't about whipping you. The rod is about directing you. And so when it comes to discipline, I tell my parents that I work with all the time, it is about guiding your child. It is about having expectations for your child. It's about having consequences for your child. And it's about following through with those consequences. And that phrase, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you, sometimes it's true because I love you. I don't want to have to come down hard on you, and I have to because this is the scenario. And if I don't, you're going to run amok in this world. And you cannot just be out in this world with no structure, no guidance, no direction, no discipline. And so when we say the word discipline, too many people, traumatized people hear physical versus guidance. I can give you a conversation. Look, and I can guide you in the direction that you're supposed to go. Sometimes I got to come down a little bit harder because I done guided you with my word. 8 different times. Come me.
Yeah.
Like I'll tell a story really quick. We go to church every Sunday in my house, every Sunday. And when my son was younger, once he got all the way dressed, if there was time, he could play his game. If there was time, once you got all the way dressed, like I need you to be prepared to stand up and walk out the door.
Go to the car.
Maybe just put your coat on.
Yeah.
Coat should be next to you.
Yeah.
All the way dressed. And I had gone through a couple of weeks where he was doing too much, didn't have his shoes on. You playing video games, but you ain't ready to walk out the door. You ain't got shoes on. And when I'm ready to walk out the door, I got my Bible and my coat. I need you to be able to stand up and walk out the door like I told you, dressed to shoes. 1 week, and this was the last time he ever did it. He's playing his video game. He ain't got his shoes on. I walked straight in the living room, took the controller out of his hand, set it down on the couch next to him, said, put your shoes on. I dare you to touch it. He put his shoes on, watching his character run right off the cliff. Now, me as a video gamer understand what it's like to not be able to pause and watch your character just
after you work so hard to get to that level.
The cliff. But I told you what my expectations were. I told you what order these things are supposed to go. I told you several times over. And you know why this needs to be the way it is. Yeah. This is the structure. This is the order. This is the discipline. This is your reward. This video game before church is your reward for doing what you were supposed to do in a timely manner.
Yeah.
You don't get your reward. And now your consequence is, I'm taking it straight out of your hand. And we're going to get this thing in order because you're taking advantage of my flexibility in this parenting thing. I could be your friend and be like, okay, you can pause. No, because if I let you pause it, it's not going to hit.
You're going to try me every time.
Okay, I will pause. No, that's not the order I said things need to be in. I said this way. And so, after that day, I ain't had none of them problems no more.
I know you did.
I ain't had them problems no more.
I know
no
you
more.
Didn't.
And so it doesn't always take these big, grandiose, traumatic. Now, I know that stuck with them, but your character dying is not a real trauma. Yeah, you just start over from your checkpoint. You'll be all right. He'll never forget it, but I ain't kicking him downstairs. But it doesn't. Your discipline of your child doesn't have to be the induction of childhood trauma.
Come on.
And that's where trauma comes from. Childhood trauma happens in your childhood. It's connected to the adults who are around you. Poor parenting, poor decision making as the caregiver is the conduit of childhood trauma. I made a status or a TikTok not too long ago about people dating people with children. And I said, if you're not prepared to take on that child as a part of your life, then you're a bad person.
Yes.
Because if you're coming between that parent and their ability to parent their child, you are a participant in childhood trauma.
Come on.
Like, that's wild for you to choose to create trauma in some other person's life. And we dehumanize children. We treat them like they are not people, when if they live long enough, they will be the new adults.
And they will remember. They're going to remember.
And so we should treat them like they are the next up and coming. They are the future. They are the now. We should treat them like they are the next up and coming citizens of this world, and not inflict so much on them and just expect them to just shut up and glaze over and
get over it. I was just over here thinking, for those of us who are healing from our childhood trauma, but sometimes I want to ask, what was your enough? I had enough point. I can't do it no more. I can't continue to bask in the hurt. I can't continue to keep going on and just living with this sore. I can't keep looking in the mirror every day, lying to myself, knowing that I'm okay. What was that point?
For me, as a therapist, if you don't deal with your stuff, your triggers will come sit on your couch. And I believe that I know that God sends people to me to help me deal with myself. And he will set somebody right on my couch with the exact same issues that I've had or I have, and have me talk them through it. And if I don't deal with myself, I will be in session ready to cry. I won't be able to handle listening to what they have to say, and I will be ineffective in their lives. And so there have been people who have come into my office, and I've had to go look in the mirror by myself and where I am with my healing in order to be able to deal with them. There have been times where I've said the very words that I need to say out of my own mouth to this person across from me, and that was really the only way that I'll get it. God likes to do that to me all the time, and it makes me mad because he plays much. But but also for me, and my audience should know I'm a poet and I'm in creative spaces a lot, and I started talking out loud about different traumas I've experienced, because I there's some things that I went through and I've shared on this podcast and I've shared in my poetry that I swore up and down that I was going to take to my grave and maybe only tell my husband. And I have been confronted with those things because I got tired of just giving shallow, fun poetry to the people. I wanted to tell more of my story. I was touched by the way that they were telling their stories, and I knew that the only way for me to get kind of through it and for it to not affect the way that I'm interacting with people, because it was affecting the way that some of the things I've gone through have affected the way I find safety in other people, especially men. I knew that some of the only ways I was going to get through that was to just speak about it, because part of the trauma was don't talk about it. This is a secret. And I'm like, well, if I kill the boogeyman, if I shine a flashlight on the boogeyman, it kills him. And so I began to, I felt like, I knew that I couldn't proceed forward in a genuine way without telling my story. And God had it on my heart too, like, no, what I have for you in store, like, whether it be this podcast or doing more entertainment or even doing ministry, whatever it is that God has got in store for me, is going to require me to be able to be vulnerable. It's going to require for me to not really have any secrets that people can hold against me. It's going to require that I am not out here people pleasing because of these old scars that I have. It's going to require me to live in my full essence, and I can't be the artist, the teacher, the leader, or whatever it is I'm supposed to be without tackling these issues. And I could feel it bubbling to the surface, and I had no choice Well, actually, I did have a choice. I did have a choice. My options were proceed forward into the destiny I have for you, my child,
Hmm.
or you could stay right where you at. It's comfortable enough, but it ain't where you said that you wanted to go. It's just more where you are. And that just wasn't enough for me.
Hmm.
So I just started ripping the band-aids off,
Come on.
bleeding all over everybody's stages.
Come on.
And it's made me a lot more fearless.
Hmm.
It's made me a lot more fearless in a lot of avenues. It made it so I like, what you gonna do? Talk about me? It's made me harder to embarrass. Which when it's harder for you to embarrass, like that exuberance I get on stage is because, like, what you go through? Talk about me and say I was doing too much. Like,
That's all you can say.
It's a lot harder for me because I'm not hiding behind all of this stuff. It has made me much more comfortable with just who I am, what I've been through, what I got going on, because I just decided to shed it. And now I'm in a space where I'm still shedding some stuff. I'm overcoming a lot of things, but I'm finding what it means to live on the other side of having let go of a lot of that trauma. And I like it over here. I really do. I love it over here.
Listen, that just made my heart smile. I was going to say, because I'm bullheaded
Mm-hmm.
and God deals with me. Oh, he deals with me. Like we were saying yesterday, like God has a sense of humor.
Phew.
God, especially when you belong to him, God will put you in some uncompromising situations to the fact that where he will put you in the face of the person who will cause you trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be a runner. I move. You make me uncomfortable, or you was a trigger.
Bye.
I'm dipping. I had a 1998 Eddie Bauer Ford Explorer.
Ooh.
I used to, especially, and I'll just share because I know like what his traumas is. Um, I am a survivor of molestation. I'm a survivor of verbal, pretty much physical abuse, um, rejection, uh, and many more stuff. Trauma by church. I used to, and I was always that kid, that teenager that was just naturally silly. So I love making people laugh, but that was my mask.
Mm.
Me singing or me playing the instrument, that was an avenue out, but it necessarily did not heal
Mm-hmm.
heal that trauma. So I guess my thing was, if I move away, I don't have to look at these people who caused me this trauma. And I remember I said, I ain't never coming back home. I ain't never doing this. And God had it away to where I had to come. And for like 8 years of my life, I felt stagnant because I had so much unforgiveness, masked unforgiveness. I was a functioning ticking bomb.
Mm.
Because I knew how to put it on in front of people, especially when you're like a minister of music and even a youth pastor. How could I effectively minister to the youth? I'm still bleeding.
Mm-hmm.
How could I tell them about overcoming trauma when I'm over here in tears telling you my story? That's how you know you're not quite healing, because when you talk about it and it affects you, you're not healed. I learned within the last, and I'm still learning. I had to forgive. I had to forgive myself.
Mm-hmm.
I had to forgive the people who wronged me. Um, and I had to love myself again. And I would used to tell myself every day, Red, it's okay. You know, that's my family name. It's okay. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to cry that stuff out. It's okay to tell people I don't want. It's okay to tell people no.
No. Huh.
Because I had a problem with it. I'm like, dang, I'm gonna lose them if I don't say yeah, because I'm so used to people walking in the band. It's okay. Because when you are by yourself, that's when God really speaks to you the most. And when he constantly pours into you that you are his child, that you are more than enough, that he knows the plans that he has for you. Whether those plans be what you want or really what accepted what he wants for you, he has the plan. And every day, I just made this drastic move from Alabama to Milwaukee. And majority of the time, I'm to myself. I go to work, I might go to the engagements or church, but I'm at home and I'm like, I got all this time.
Mm.
Am I gonna deal with Raymond? Am I going to really face the traumas that I so repeatedly tell myself that I'm over? Or am I really just going to allow this season to be to where God does his surgery?
Ooh, we.
And this season of my life, I'm at the hospital. I've been prepped for surgery for a long time. It was up to me to agree to go into surgery.
Mm.
For a long time, God been wanting to prepare us to be healed from childhood traumas. Um, but sometimes we're not ready to accept that we need surgery. Who wants to go to the doctor and find out they have something wrong with them? Who wants to go to the doctor and say, oh, hey, you need medication for this? You got this? No.
Mm-hmm.
But when God gives you the surgery, once he's done, you won't ever have to go back. And so this season of my life is called loving myself again.
Mm.
It's loving the imperfection. It's loving even the little child who could not cry for himself. It's loving that, hey, I love new things. I found that I have a new appetite. I have a new palate. The things that usually would feed my spirit no longer feeds my spirit now. I can breathe. It's almost like I used to have dreadlocks. And I remember when I used to get my hair in these tight styles, it was a relief when I used to take them styles down. It was like, I can breathe. Oh, I'm free. I'm liberated. Nothing is restraining me. So I want to encourage who's ever listening to this podcast, whether you are, and I encourage you, if you don't believe in the higher power of God, give him a shot, because God definitely has helped me and is helping me in this very moment to give God a shot and to know that you are not your trauma.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't define you as a person, but learn who your person is. Your person is the real true essence of you. Learn the things that make you happy. Learn how to smile. Learn how to laugh. Learn how to cry without being sorry for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how healing really starts. That's how people are really drawn to the true spirit that you have. And you will find so much joy, because happiness comes and goes, but joy is everlasting. You will find joy, man. You will be so much of a joyous person that is going to be contagious.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's pretty much
That's that.
yeah, that's it.
That's that. That's that. Yeah. Yeah. Along my journey, I found God so much different than I've ever known him. So much different. He's so much bigger than I've known him to be, and I've known him to be really big.
Yeah.
And he just keeps getting bigger. And it's like, what part of omnipotent didn't you understand?
You get the first time.
But he's so much bigger, and he's so much closer, and he's so much more miraculous
What you say?
than I knew.
Mm.
Than I understood, and I'm excited to get to understand what that means even more so across my life. Healing has made me be in prayer for real, be in Bible study for real, like throughout the week, like for real, like I does this for real, and I don't have to brag about it. I don't even have to. I tell about it because I need it, because I need folk to, because I want to encourage other people to make it a real part of their lives too, and that praying every day, talking to God every day is it's really not that hard.
It's not.
It's really not that hard once you develop a regimen for it, and an appetite for it, and an understanding for it, and the utility for it. Like, oof, it's like showering. Ooh. I gotta talk to God as often as I bathe, and I stank when I don't.
Cause you will. And
I can feel it, just like I can feel it if I ain't bathed. That I can feel it when I ain't talk to God.
I do not want to be tart in His presence.
Ooh, don't be tart.
Don't be tart.
And it has carried me along with the healing, and it has helped me like to not have to. Especially when it comes to the people pleasing stuff, because I talked about that last episode, but I identify myself as a recovering people pleaser, and my faith has been a driving force in that, because God, and I have to continue to dwell in that, because God is reminding me there ain't nothing that any of these people on this planet can give you that I can't give you. I can even give you more people.
What you say?
I can give you anything that you feel like you're gonna lose by standing in your truth around these people. I give you back. I can give you back many times over. All you got to do is know that I'm going to give it to you. If you're supposed to have it, I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you better. But I can't give it to you. Your hands full right now. And if I did give it to you, you wouldn't even see it. Because you're too focused. Matter of fact, I might have gave it to you already, standing right behind you. You focus in the wrong direction. And so in that, I just continuously pray that God helps me, God guides me in the releasing of all the things that I shouldn't be attached to, including the traumas, and that He protects me from all that stuff that continues to try to come at me, including the triggers.
Yes.
And that He guides me in the direction of the people, places, and things that are going to uphold the healing and propel me into the next era. And despite all of the things that I've gone through, I know God didn't do it, and I know God didn't want those things for me. And I know that, and I'm not even really one of those everything happens for a reason. I more so believe that God can turn anything into like a blessing. He can turn any of your traumas or your tragedies into a beautiful part of your story if you let Him.
Yeah, if you
let Him. Yeah. If you let Him, He can turn. There's a bunch of stuff that He never had for us, but because we live in this corruptible world, it touches us.
Come on.
And He can turn all of that. He can get the glory out of all of that. That's how and why all things work together for good.
Come on.
Because He can take it and He can turn it.
Yes.
If you give it to Him.
If you give it to Him.
And so I'm like, y'all know I'm a real believer. I'm a
Big
real believer.
Big time.
And y'all can see it all over me. And that's okay, because I used to be shy about that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, being afraid of being rejected by people because what if they think I'm too churchy? What if they think, you know,
Let them think,
like,
let them think what they
but
think.
God is like, look, every time you talk about me, I bless you. Every time you show up with me all over you, I bless you.
Tremendously.
I got atheists asking you questions about me just because you show up with me unashamed.
Come on.
I used to just have my Bible in my car sometimes because I wouldn't take it out of my car because I wasn't reading regularly. So
You
it would be just in my car on like a Monday, and I would be driving some of my foster kids around the city. Um, and I had some kid. There's one in particular who did not believe in God because they were like, when all of this stuff was happening to me, where was God? And they would see my Bible in the car. I never talked about being of faith or going to church or anything like that. My Bible would just still be in my car because it's my car.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I was planting a seed on accident just by having the mere presence of a Bible in my car and being a kind person to this person.
Love and kindness have I
and
driven thee.
they would look at me and be like, you always treat me right to the best of your ability, and I know you carry that Bible. What's in that book?
Jesus.
And now a decade plus later, that person I know is a believer. Maybe not in the traditional sense of going to church and stuff like that, but I know that that person talks about God.
How great is Jesus?
That person talks about God. That person has children now and is happy to be a parent. It's a foster kid. It's happy to be a parent. Was an atheist, didn't believe in God because of everything that they were going through at that point. Was curious enough to let them in their heart just because they encounter me, somebody who just believes and be trying to act right. And I wasn't nowhere near as healed as I am now.
Yes.
I was all kind of extra broken. But so I'm gonna ask you this question, and then we'll close the show out because we've been going. With all this you've gone through, why do you still believe? How do you still believe?
Because God brought me out. He had his way of bringing it. He didn't do it the way I wanted him to. I used to be mad with God. Like, me and you, we ain't on speaking terms. But God will allow things to happen in my life to where I know it was only him that brought me out of it. I know that it has made my relationship with him so much tight. I can't go without him. The good, the bad, the ugly. It's like I have to tell him everything. You know how me and you talking? Like, I talk to him just like that. I give him his reverence. I give him respect. Okay, now this is a real problem. You know
how I talk.
Yeah, like you know me, and I could be open. I could be honest with God, and sometimes God, sometimes, all the time, God plays the things or my hardships back to me like a movie. He lets me see it, and the great thing about God, he even lets me see him, even in the traumas. How whoever thought I would be sitting here on the podcast talking about how I'm healed from traumas? Who in the world would ever think that I would be pouring into children as an educator? Who would have thought that I would be in the frame of mind that I'm in? Who would ever have thought that I have been shielded or I have been protected, even in my adulthood, about some of the things that I wasn't even healed from in my trauma that I should have got, but I did not get? God. And every day that I am alive, and I'm not in that trauma anymore, lets me know that I'm a survivor. I survived it. I overcame it. And now I'm in a place to where God can use me to help others.
That's beautiful. Whew. I think we ain't got nothing but prayer left. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day. I thank you for this time. I thank you for this conversation. I thank you for the enlightenment. And I ask that you just carry this message everywhere it needs to go.
Yes.
I ask that you continue to cover us on our journeys of healing, that we may be bigger, brighter, better vessels for you and your glory, and all of the people that you can shield from and bring out of their own traumas. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Thank God. Amen.
Amen.
Ooh, I thank you so much.
Thank
Ray.
you for
I
inviting
appreciate
me.
I appreciate you so much for agreeing to come on the show and just your contributions to the conversation today. Today was good. And for those of you who have watched, of course, like, comment, share if you appreciate the episode. If you know somebody who could benefit from the topic of today, go ahead and pass this one along to them. And if you would like to bless the podcast and help out, give a little financial appreciation for what you've experienced here today, you can hit my Cash App, # Moesghetti. As I always say, buy me a coffee, buy me a car, whatever's in your wallet or whatever's on your heart is greatly appreciated. It keeps the things going. And yeah, I appreciate you for spending a moment with me. I appreciate you for spending a moment with me.
Thank you, sis. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you for having a moment with Moesghetti. Take me out, Tom.